Hello everyone, I'm Halcylion. I've been having a lot of fun sailing my war ships across the various rivers, lakes and seas of Calradia and unlocking a new dimension of economically and militarily dominating the opposition. Today I shall teach you all I've learned about this new entry into the Bannerverse to help you become the Scourge of the Seven Seas. Has anyone actually counted them? Anyway, let us begin. I used to be a devout Botanian. The 50% speed boost in forests is nothing to scoff at because being faster than your adversaries gives you a significant advantage. You can outrun bandits who see you as easy prey, catch fleeing enemies to give them a spanking, and you can arrive into town before a competitor's caravan steals your profits. But if you plan to spend any time at sea, you should embrace your inner Nord. Buying your first ship, however, is not the easiest thing in the world. The cheapest one is the Dhow, and it's worth about 13,000 dinars. Chump change for a late-game character, but a small fortune at the start of a new adventure. So if you want to stretch your sea legs, you best put that money together. Tournaments, quests, bandit hunting, trading or raiding are just a few ways to raise the capital. Alternatively, you may obtain a free longboat at the end of Gunnar's lessons in Ostiken, which can be skipped without consequence. Once you buy your first ship, you'll find out there's not much you can do with it. If you have a full party of 20 lads, you need to throw 4 of them overboard because the Dhow can only accommodate a maximum of 16. Or you can stuff all 20 on board if you can endure the overmanned speed penalty, and regret your choice when a crew of corsairs catches up with you.
Ahoy there!
What if you save up to buy a galley with good oars? Can you sail to distant shores? My mother told me so. The galley has space for 32 soldiers, but you can't have that many when your clan is still at tier 0, so that extra space is useless. The Dhow can at least carry a significant load, so it's more useful to you at the beginning of your seafaring adventure, especially for trading. Excluding the higher initial investment, it can bring you more profit overall because it can maintain a healthy speed with just 6 people on board to fill its skeleton crew requirement, bringing your operational cost to about 10 dinars per day while offering a large cargo hold that can carry as much as a caravan with 70 pack mules. Considering you'd need a party of 70 men to manage those mules, and that only becomes accessible after your clan reaches tier 2, I can perhaps make a good argument that the Dhow is a worthwhile investment for a merchant, especially early on. I was debating whether I should spend my first 15k to set up a caravan or buy a boat. The second choice was 100% worth it because after just a few transactions, I turned 8,000 into 25,000, and then the profits kept rolling in. I could eventually invest that capital into caravans, but I wouldn't have made so much money were it not for my first ship. All with a skeleton crew of 6 recruits, me being one of them. We were caught once and had to pay a significant toll to the pirates, but the fault lay with me, not with my vessel. I was composing a letter for a fair maiden. After a while I had enough money to buy my second ship, a Vandian trade cog. Slightly more expensive than the Dhow, but able to carry so much more, requiring only 2 more oarsmen in its skeleton crew. But the best trade ship, by far, is the Imperial Corbita. Fully upgraded, it can carry the most amount of cargo out of any other vessel, and it boasts the highest seaworthiness, able to endure even through the harshest storms. If you're a dedicated merchant, get 3 of these and you're set, but this isn't a trade guide. I'll make one, eventually. For now, let us focus on the boats. Now, I was just saying that the Dhow can haul as much as a caravan of 70 mules, but what if you also want to be able to carry that burden on land? Can you take the mules on board your ship? Yes. Only problem is, those animals will occupy quite a large portion of your cargo hold, and the same goes for livestock or mounts, and if you have cavalry units, their horses will also take up space on board your vessel. So if you want to have decent speed and carry capacity both on water and on land, you will have to sacrifice some of your ship's cargo hold for the mounts and beasts of burden that your party needs. As for navigating the waterways of Calradia, there isn't much you need to know. Traveling on the open sea is faster than in coastal waters or rivers, but your ships take damage the longer they spend out there. Must be the krakens tickling your ship's bellies. Large vessels get a bigger speed boost on the open sea, thanks to their deep draft, while lighter ships thrive in shallow waters. Also, if you're heading in the same direction where the wind is blowing, you'll move even faster, but if you're chasing someone, they'll be going in the same direction because, you see, What matters most is your speed relative to everyone else, and as long as you maintain a balanced crew size and don't overburden your ships, you should be good. And remember that the larger your fleet, the slower it'll move, but you will have moments when you have to endure that speed penalty, such as when leading armies, or when you emerge victorious in a large naval battle and you capture your enemy's ships. The last thing you can do to improve your travel speed on sea is to invest into upgraded oars or sails, and if you're a Nord, you will be faster than every other culture by default. But not all travel should be done on water. For example, sailing from Danustica to Chaikand forces you to go around the entire continent. Sure, there are ports around the coast where you can repair your ships and do a bit of trading. Maybe you'll even catch some pirates here and there, but why sail for weeks when you can just disembark, walk for a couple of days and arrive at your destination? And once you're there, you can visit the port and call your ships, and somehow, the Calradian Ship Towing Corporation will bring your entire fleet over in just a few hours. And you don't necessarily have to disembark at a port, you can do it anywhere if the terrain allows it, but don't do it if you're being chased by an enemy fleet, because it takes quite a long time.
Ahoy there!
Getting back on your ships is instant, however, so if you're planning to raid coastal villages, you can park your ships close by, walk in, plunder, and when the local authorities arrive, get back on your boats and sail away with the loot. Embarking is instant for you, but it takes time for other parties. However, the reason it takes them longer to do it is because they can teleport their fleet anywhere on the map in mere moments, whereas you only have that ability in friendly ports. They have a special contract signed with the CSTC. And now that you know the basics of traveling, let us talk about the various ships available for purchase. There are 3 types of seafaring vessels you have access to. So far we've mentioned trade ships, but there's also troop transports as well as the much coveted warships. But there's also 3 different weight classes: light, medium and heavy. The Dhow, as well as its northern cousin the Knarr, are considered light merchant ships. The Trade Cog and Corbita are medium cargo vessels. I wasn't able to find a heavy trade ship, but if one existed, you'd find it in an Aserai port. Then there's troop transports. Imperial galleys, northern longships and the Kuzet Sambuk are able to carry a decent amount of troops and can escort a larger cargo vessel to offer protection against pirates, or an easy escape after a raid. But my favorites in this class are the Battanian Berlin, as a light boat, the Imperial Liburna, which is the only medium ship that can be outfitted with a ram, or the Nord Drakkar, which has no equal when it comes to boarding operations, thanks to its huge deck size and maneuverability. However, I never bought a Drakkar because I prefer the third category, warships. All of these are heavy, but some are more agile than others. I'll start with my favorite, the Dromakion. Wavebreaker ram for when I want an obstacle removed, firepot ballista in the front to exercise my mariner skill, as well as a few upgrades for speed and maneuverability. To summarize its capabilities, this one can outrun nearly all other vessels and decimate their crews from a distance, thanks to its front-mounted siege weapon. Its 2 types of sails also offer it great versatility, but now is not the time to sing its praises. Maybe later. The Kuzet Kalguk is the Dromakion's distant cousin. It is lighter, slightly more maneuverable, but not as versatile. The one advantage it has is its raised weapons platform, which give you the high ground to more easily shoot your enemies when you board them. And the third assault vessel is the Vlandian roundship, which I actually didn't really care about until I realized it's the only heavy ship that can have upgraded oars and a front-mounted ballista. It cannot fit a ram or side upgrades, unfortunately, but handles like a dream when fully upgraded. And then there's the Dromon, the most imposing vessel, terror of the seas and a veritable seaborne fortress. If it weren't so damn clunky, it would definitely dethrone the Dromakion as my favorite ship. The raised ballista platform does make it easier for you to aim the damn thing at the enemies, but don't expect to kite them to death in a Dromon. The only competitor it has in this category is the Aserai Gurab, which can carry slightly more cargo, but cannot reach the same speeds. My personal fleet consists of a Dromakion as my flagship, a Dromon with extended barracks that is able to carry a large amount of soldiers and act as a reinforcement vessel during naval battles, a roundship to keep my enemies distracted, and a fully upgraded Corbita to haul trade goods, supplies, my party's mounts, and the loot I take from raids. But I have 4 ships when the command limit is 3. How do I do that? Well, the Boatswain skill has a perk that allows you to field 1 additional ship. I didn't obtain that perk yet, I will. For now I just have to deal with a minus 0.17 speed penalty, which I can simply ignore due to the fact that I'm a Nord and my racial bonus allows me to outrun everyone, even with that impediment. Once my abilities as a boatswain allow me to manage that extra ship, I'll be able to navigate at even higher speeds, or keep the penalty and field 5 boats instead. But that skill is rather difficult to develop, so let me teach you how I raised it to an acceptable level. The skill description states that in order to increase it, you must weather storms and survive naval battles. I tested both methods, and while chasing storms can give a tiny amount of XP, naval battles have no effect on this skill, unfortunately. Perhaps this will be changed in the future, but when I tested it, I had 10,414 skill experience before I engaged Sea Raiders in battle. At the end of it I had 10,488. But the first method sounded more promising, so I vowed to build the most seaworthy vessel and do a bit of storm chasing. So I bought myself an Imperial Corbeta, which boasts the highest seaworthiness out of all the ships, and then went to an Asarai port to purchase the copper hull sheathing and some linen sails. I then traveled all the way to the lands of the Norse to purchase a heavy storm cover and some ashen oars. With these upgrades, my Corbeta became really fast and nearly impervious to harsh weather conditions. It would still suffer a small amount of damage when crossing the open seas or entering heavy storms, but a mild storm would have no effect. With my ship prepared, I decided to stand in the middle of a rainstorm, and this gave me a small increase to boatswaining, but not enough to make it a viable method of training the skill. I'd need to make storm chasing my way of life in order to see any significant improvements. I then braved a harsh thunderstorm, and sure enough, my ship started taking damage in spite of its seaworthiness. This increased my skill even further, but at some point, we were also standing on the open sea, which damaged the Corbeta, and I nearly lost it in the storm, because the clouds were traveling in the same direction of the port I wanted to head into for repairs. But only when I finally repaired the ship did I see any significant improvements to my skill, and that was quite expensive. Chasing storms and then repairing the damage is not an economically viable way to develop Boatswain. Too expensive. If only I could repair ships for free. While researching ways to improve this skill, I ended up capturing a pirate ship that would have fetched 5,000 dinars if sold in its poor condition. Repairs set me back 7k, but because I wanted to increase my skill, I spared that money and then sold it for 12,000. What is the conclusion? If you capture a ship, repair it and then sell it, you've basically upgraded your skill at no additional cost. So I bought a combat vessel and decided to attack corsairs. After capturing some pirate ships with breached hulls and tattered sails, I took them to the nearest shipyard, paid for repairs, increased my skill and then sold them, and discovered this as the absolute best method to develop my skill in Boatswain. And now you can do it too. Perhaps in the future we'll also gain XP when surviving battles, but for now, this is the most viable way to do it. Raiding trade convoys as a mercenary is my favorite way of obtaining ships and valuable loot to make tons of money and develop my skills as a sailor. But there's a danger of fighting actual lords as well, so you need to build yourself a proper, combat-capable fleet. A longboat and some cargo vessels are enough for a beginner, but you should invest into a warship as soon as you have the funds. A fully upgraded Dromakion or round ship equipped with a firepot ballista can handle nearly any threat, but if you prefer a grab or a Drakkar, I won't stop you. Maybe you'll find those ships more useful than I do. I already told you where to buy the ships from, but what about the upgrades? Well, first of all, you better have a lot of money. A full set of upgrades can cost you almost as much as the ship itself. Secondly, if you have this perk in the Boatswain skill, you may reduce upgrade costs by 30%. The other one is better overall, because you'll be sinking a lot more money into repairs, especially if you want to upgrade the skill, but you can alternate between these perks with regular visits to the Arena Master. Some ships already come outfitted with such enhancements, and they're significantly cheaper than if you bought the ship and then then purchased the upgrades. But you most likely won't have that sort of luck. Although, if you fight a lot of lords, you'll get to capture their fully upgraded ships. Now, upgrades come in 3 tiers: bronze, silver, and gold. Everything below the golden standard is a waste of time and money, so seek out a town with a level 3 shipyard, as those offer the best upgrades, as well as access to the highest tier ships. For my core beta, I bought the 3 upgrades it needed most from the Aserai. The copper hull sheathing for the huge seaworthiness bonus and a bit of additional speed, the cargo tent, which replaced the storm cover because it offers increased capacity, as well as linen sails, which boost my fleet's speed on the open seas. As for the ashen oars, I already told you I got them from the Nords. But there are many more upgrades you can fit on your ships, and I'll tell you where you can find each and every one of them. To give you the short version, most upgrades you need are found in towns bordering the Southern Sea, from the Empire and the Aserai, while other factions sell various bits and pieces. Now for the detailed explanation, we'll start with siege weapons. The flaming grapeshot ballista can be found in Aserai towns, although it's highly outclassed by the firepot, which is the absolute best at dealing with enemy troops and improving your mariner skill. You may purchase this weapon of mass destruction from Imperial forts, along with the iron shot ballista, which is allegedly great for sinking ships, if you absolutely must do that, and the reinforced battlements with barracks that allows your ship to host 10% more troops. While not a siege weapon per se, this is an upgrade I purchased for my Dromon, and it stacks nicely with the aft upgrade with the same name, although for the Dromakion, I bought the improved rudder for more agile steering from an Aserai port. Moving on to rams, the reinforced wave breaker is the only one you need, and it may be purchased from Kuzeit or Aserai shipyards. Hull sheathing has 2 variants: bronze for increased durability, or copper for improved speed. I prefer speed. Imperials sell the first one, Aserai the second. As I've said, these 2 factions have the most upgrades, and this includes the arrow brazier and reinforced southern shields. If you find circles more aesthetically pleasing than ovals, go north to the Sturgeon and Nord ports. Skipping over the deck, cotton sails may be purchased from, you guessed it, the Aserai. But you don't always have the wind on your side, and for those times you need oars. Imperials sell the oaken oars, which are amazing for maneuverability, but if you prefer speed, both in combat and during travel, you should consider a pilgrimage to the Nords for the ashen ones. Figureheads cannot be purchased. I unlocked the Imperial Ram by fighting a Vlandian lord as an Aserai mercenary, which leads me to believe you randomly unlock them as you engage in naval battles against the Lords of the Realm, much like banners from land battles. Moving back to the deck, I skipped it because it has a lot more options. The Aserai and Kuzeits sell large arrow crates, which allow your archers to resupply during a naval skirmish. If you prefer your javelineers to also have that option, you may buy the alternate upgrade from the Empire or the Nords. From the far north, but also found in Sturgia, you may purchase the heavy storm cover, but if you want your melee soldiers to enjoy a 10% damage bonus, you might want the boarding weapons, sold only by the fish people. Finally, there's the large cargo tent, which is the best upgrade for a trade ship and may be found exclusively in Aserai cities. Now to show you a fully upgraded ship in action, let me sing the Dromakion's praises and use this opportunity to share what I've learned. And what better way to do that other than describing the pivotal role it played in a naval battle against the Nords. Prior to this engagement, I've been in several fights, lost a few soldiers, and some of my ships were damaged. Well, a couple of them were just captured in my most recent skirmish and were brought into the fight. This naval battle was initiated by Jarl Tovarek, but thanks to my refined political acumen, I was able to convince him that his king wasn't worth following, and after giving him a generous donation, he joined my kingdom. Now, instead of having to fight 570 people with a mere 250, I had 370 against the enemy's 460. Much better odds, though I think I could have handled the fight even if the Jarl didn't join me. When the battle began, I deployed 5 vessels. My Dromakion as the flagship in the center, the Dromon escorted by a longship on the left, and the Drakkar escorted by a light longship on the right. I then ordered them to go on opposite ends of the map, on the far left and far right respectively, while I unfurled my sails and went towards the center left to get into a good spot for ramming and shooting. The positioning wasn't ideal because the foe began turning their ships and I wanted to catch them from the side. So I maneuvered tightly, folded my square sail to better catch the wind on the lateen, and managed to ram at maximum speed into not one but two of their ships. The first ramming maneuver was weak, but because the target was a light vessel, it sustained massive damage, while the second ram was stronger, but dealt less damage to the hull. However, in that particular moment, the waves rose my ship above the enemies, and when we came crashing down, their ship toppled and got dragged along for a significant distance while their sizable crew fell overboard. The man captaining that ship prioritized chasing me with his 10 remaining crewmates instead of saving his drowning bodies, who all eventually died. But this maneuver slowed us down to a crawl, and if we got boarded, the fight would be lost. So I unfurled the square sail again and steered the ship in the optimal position for the wind to push us away. Thing is, the enemy's fleet has square sails too, and they'll catch us if we don't change course. Eventually they found themselves sailing against the wind, so they furled their square sails, and so did I. But my lateen sail stayed open because while it doesn't provide as much speed, it is able to catch the wind from a wider angle, allowing for better maneuverability, so if I do everything right, I can outrun the enemy and turn back to face them for another bombardment. Steering the ship feels like an impossible task at times, but I found that with my sails open I can turn it in a bit of an arch, and if I run against the wind, I can fold them and let the oarsmen do all the steering. I'm not absolutely sure if this is true or not, but I found out that if I tell my men to paddle in reverse while I steer the ship in one direction, it turns much faster. Oaken oars are amazing at this task, but my Dromakion can't fit that upgrade. As for the oarsmen, they have almost the same speed whether they push the ship forward or backward, so if you're trying to board but you overshoot the target, there's no need to turn your ship 180 degrees. Just put it in reverse. Or if you want to sit still and then rapidly accelerate, you may leave your sails open but tell your men to row backwards. This will act as some sort of an anchor, and when you need to boost out of there, just row forward and let the wind do most of the work. But let's get back to the fight. After I turned around, I noticed two heavily damaged ships, the ones I rammed into. One of them lost its entire crew, so it didn't even register as a threat, but the other still had 31 healthy combatants on board, at least until I sink it with a masterful shot from the Ballista. Well, that's embarrassing. I landed my next shot, but when I realized we're too close for comfort, I opened my sails and tried running away, but their crew had already sank their hooks into our ships. In this split second, I had a decision to make. Turn to catch the wind and accelerate away, or turn my back completely on our foes to break their boarding ropes. I chose the second option and told my men to row forward, and when we were out of harm's way, I positioned for maximum wind force. Looking back at them, I wanted to burn their sails with a shot from my Ballista, but unfortunately, I couldn't mount one in the back. I'll have to bring this million dinar idea to the shipwrights and ask for only some tiny royalties on the design. Well, technically, you can just row backwards while shooting at the enemy, but if they have the wind on their side, they'll quickly close the distance, unless you burn their sails down, which can only be done if they're open. High risk, high reward. When I had some room to breathe and analyze the situation, I realized that I've omitted to give my other ships the order to keep moving, and an enemy vessel managed to board the Drakkar. Luckily for us, it was a small ship and its crew quickly perished in the attempt. I then ordered those two to keep moving, but spoiler alert, the big ship was tied up with the boat that boarded it and they refused to cut ties, while only the small one moved away. But I didn't find this out until much later. After taking another turn, I attempted to sink the heavily damaged ship, but my firepots deal more damage to troops than to hulls, and eventually I no longer had a good angle, so I turned my fury towards the longship that was approaching, killing quite a lot of its crew when the tides raised my ship above them. But my aggression allowed the enemy to close in, and two of their ships managed to land their boarding hooks onto us. Luckily, I was already positioned to let my square sail catch the wind and managed to break free once more and sail away, although this was a close call. When I assessed the situation, I realized that the Dromon flank was being attacked by a small vessel, so I didn't bother to react. But my Drakkar was also being assaulted by 2 ships carrying about 60 soldiers. They could survive, but not without considerable casualties. The only one in a precarious position was the Drakkar's escort, which followed the order I gave, and was now being boarded by the enemy flagship. 25 versus 105. They had no chance of survival, and that was my mistake. I will have to issue the "my bad" decree in my kingdom, where the widows of those men will receive ample compensation in the form of a handwritten apology letter. But where some would see tragedy, I saw opportunity, so I went forth, hoping to deal as much damage to the enemy Drakkar as possible, while they were still tied up with the martyred longship. My flaming pot extinguished about 30 of their lives, but while I was shooting, I was afraid I'd get attacked from behind. Fortunately, most of the enemies went to attack the Dromakion and the Drakkar, and I ordered them to engage. Only the heaviest damaged vessel was approaching, and I was determined to send it to the bottom. While the crew of the other ships were putting the enemy to the sword, I managed to sail away from the enemy's flagship, turn around and got into a good position. I was hoping to sink my target with the Ballista's last shot, but it took another ramming maneuver to finish the job, this time unassisted by the wind. Just the raw strength of my oarsmen. Only the enemy Drakkar remains with its 64 men. My scout reports 83, but he's assuming the lads from the ship I sank will make it on board. They wouldn't. I had 50 men on my Dromakion, and I bet they're stronger, but I didn't want to board the enemy's flagship yet. Doing so would result in more casualties than I'm willing to expend. I already have to write 25 "my bad" letters. I don't want to keep adding to the count, so I ordered my Dromakion to engage as well. In the meantime, I rode the waves, taking full advantage of the maneuverability afforded by the lateen sail. Eventually, the Dromakion got close, being able to board our foes from their left, while I ordered my crew to board them from the right. And then I got to work, throwing javelins and slicing as many as I could with my sword. But I could barely do anything before my men slaughtered them all. And so, the battle was won, and 294 of our foes were slain, wounded, or littering the bottom of the Northern Sea. But between me and Jarl Doveric, our side lost 46 men as well. My hand is going to hurt from writing all those apology letters, but this was a good result. And while this was my favorite naval battle, the loot wasn't worth it. And I didn't even capture a single ship. Oh well, at least I made some progress in the war that the Nords have started. But I hope my experience was a good learning opportunity for you lads. I can't wait to hear your war stories. But is there anything I missed? I haven't taught you about oar power. In a naval engagement, you can order your crew to use all the oars, or just half, or none, basically making this a choice between speed or firepower. If one of your soldiers is rowing, he cannot fight, so if you intend to just sit still and prepare to be boarded, tell your men to release the oars. Alternatively, if the wind is on your side, you can just do strafing runs with all your soldiers shooting at enemy ships while the sails move yours, but I'm sure you can figure this sort of stuff out on your own. And with this, I think I've shared all I've learned during my time sailing across Calradia, both as a merchant and as a pirate. Well, technically I was never an outlaw. I did all my piracy as a mercenary without breaking any law of the land, and I have to say, plundering naval trade convoys is much easier than raiding land caravans because the latter are extremely fast, relative to the speed my warband can muster, even with all our horses. On sea, you don't get slowed down by herding animals or by dragging your prisoners along, or by the fact you have more men than the caravan you're chasing, or don't have a horse for every man in your party. Only thing that can slow you down is stuffing your ships beyond their limit, and thanks to their huge cargo holds, that won't be much of a problem. Anyway, some time ago I started making a series of videos dedicated to the Rogue Trader playstyle and Bannerlord, but as soon as War Sales was announced, I put that series on hold because I knew the addition of naval gameplay will fit that playstyle even better. I guess this video is part of that Rogue Trader series. An updated trade guide, a bandit tutorial, and lessons about various aspects of this game are on the way. Stay tuned. But we're done for now. Thank you very much for watching, I hope this guide was useful to you, and I'll see you in 2026. Anyway, I wish you a very happy new year, full of accomplishments and beautiful moments with those dear to you. Enjoy the fireworks, and goodbye.